Alright, here's the next project I'm going to start working on. This is a 1980 Suzuki GS550. I built this bike about a year ago and was getting ready to start driving it, and I noticed on it that started getting some oil leaking on the other side right here at the bottom part. Get it on video on the bottom part of the head there. So I guess the gasket that goes in there, the seals, have gone bad. I'll show you right here on the other side. I don't know if you can see over here, the light's kind of bad, but right here it leaks oil after it's been running for about 5-10 minutes. It developed a little oil leak here. This bike only had 13,000 miles on it. When I did the build on it, I've been sitting for quite a while. Got it running. It runs great. So I did a little cafe conversion on it just because of some of the rust that was on the frame. The exhaust was all rusted out of it, just from sitting. Like I said, it only has, well, let's look. I'm sorry, not even 13,000 miles. I don't know if you can see. It only has 11,000 miles on it. So I did a build on it. I'm happy with the build. I love the way it looks. The seat's not bolted down. It sits down flat. But I love the way it looks. But had so many other things I wanted to do last year. I didn't pull the motor to do the new seals on it. I've got the new seals coming in. They should be in any day now. But I'm going to start pulling this motor here soon. And unfortunately, this motor, the way it sits in the frame, you can't do any of this work on it without pulling the motor. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm getting ready to pull this motor. So what I'm doing first here is I'm taking all the bolts loose for the exhaust. I'm going to get that out of the way. I've already taken the carbs, broke them loose, took the pod filters off so I can get those off and out of the way. So I'm just going to work my way around finding things that would hold the motor in or be in the way. But this motor is very tight to get out, and I'm going to try to do as much of it as I can on the lift. I know a lot of people will say you have to lay it on its side and let the motor slide out of its side. I really don't want to do that, but if I have to, I will. I'm going to try to do it this way with it on the lift, see if we can get somebody on each side and lift the motor out and slide it out. So I'm just going through disconnecting things that are to the motor. I'm going to get the tank out of the way next. My battery is going dead in my camera, so I'm going to charge the battery. So I probably won't have video of doing everything, but I'll try to explain everything that I did. So, you know, make this easy. An easy video if anybody else has to do this. Maybe I'll be able to use it as a guide, or at least give them ideas of what needs to be done. Okay, we've got the carbs out of the way. We've disconnected all the throttle linkage, or not throttle linkage, but throttle cable. And now we're going to remove the plugs, spark plug wires. Now the thing with these coils, I don't know if you can see it up here, you have two coils on this one, and number 3 and I believe it's number 1 run off of this coil on the right side of the motorcycle, and number 3 and 4 run off the left coil over here of the motorcycle. So they crisscross like that. And so we're going to remove those cables. This cable, number 4, already has a sticker on it saying it's number 4. I put a little mark over here on this cable somewhere that's number 3, but we know that they cross like that, so it's pretty easy to keep them straight. So I'm just going to kind of move them up here out of the way, and we'll get on with next. We'll take off the, move over here. We will take off this side panel here, and the gear shift linkage has a little C-clip here. I don't know if you can see it Has a little C-clip, you pop that off. Bolt you take out over here, and this whole linkage piece slides off. I think we can leave the pegs on when we do it. I can't remember if I had to take the peg off on this side. I think we may have to take the peg off on this side to get the linkage all the way out. And then we'll get the starter cover off. We'll get this clutch cable, get this side panel off so we can get to the clutch cable and get all that removed. So that'll be the next thing I'm working on here. Okay, I got my little spring clip pliers. Just remove that little spring clip. Got that out of the way. Now we're going to remove this bolt here. I want to say it's an 8mm. Well, it could be wrong. It could be a 10. Looks like an 8. But, let's see. Yep, it's 10. So just loosen that up. I think you have to take this bolt all the way out. I think it fits in a little groove there. It won't come out unless you take it all the way out. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've worked on this bike. I have it all apart. But I do like the way Suzuki made these bikes, because it's, to me, I think they're really easy to work on, and everything really makes sense. I know everyone loves Hondas, and Hondas are great bikes, but to me, this Suzuki is a lot easier to work on, except for stuff like this, which all manufacturers have, where you can't get the gear shifter all the way out of the way without taking the foot pegs loose. But it's no big deal. So we'll get those broken loose. Let's see. It's 18mm, feels like. No, I'm wrong. 17. 17 fits a little bit better. So we'll break these loose. But yeah, I just really like the way Suzuki has made their bikes, and you know, I know, like I said, everybody loves Hondas, old classic Hondas, and they're awesome bikes, but I really like this Suzuki. I like the fact too that they have you know, front and rear disc brakes on this bike. I think that's, you know, this is a 1980, so you know, not many manufacturers at that time were putting rear disc brakes on bikes. So for this to have disc brakes front and back, I mean, it's just a single disc in the front and the rear, and a little bit I've ridden it. Not the best brakes in the world. Could have used a dual caliber up front. Dual disc brakes up front would have been nice. But it is a little lightweight 550 and does okay. Let's see, I thought I could just pop this down and have enough room to get it off, but might have to remove that all the way. Okay, so I was able to just loosen this front bolt up, kind of rotate the foot peg up, then you can slide the shifter off. And what I like to do is put bolts back where they came out of, just easier to keep track of. So I'm going to put this bolt back in here. Oops, I can get the thread back in straight. Let's put this bolt back in here. I'm going to take this little C-clip and put back on the pin here it came off of. Don't want to lose that, so just put that back on there. Get the gear shifter out of the way. So now we'll be able to move on to this side panel. I've had this off recently, so I don't think I'll need my little impact screwdriver to get these bolts off. But if you haven't had these off in a long time, I definitely recommend you getting an impact hammer. and taking those off. As a matter of fact, I'll just grab it and show you what I'm talking about if you don't know. Alright, so what I was talking about here is these, was it JSI or JSI screws, I think is what it's, the Japanese, JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard, I believe is what the abbreviation is, screws. But it takes a special bit that's kind of, it looks like a Phillips, but it's kind of squared at the end. And it fits into these screws a little bit better. But you can get an impact driver like this, they're spring loaded. So you can put it on there, and I'll try to do it with the camera right here. You put it on and you just kind of turn it a little bit till it catches. And then you can hit it with a hammer and it will turn those screws so they're much easier to get out and less likely to strip them. So you just put it on, kind of lock a little bit, and it doesn't usually take much to get them to turn. And on these old motorcycles, that will really help you from stripping out your screws and then being screwed. And having to drill them out, and have just issues of then having to find another screw, and believe me, it just helps a lot. And I've used these on my cars, BMW motorcycles, use them on everything. That for these old screws that have been in here for a long time, it just really will help save you a lot of trouble from dealing with strip screws and screws that the heads get all torn. Alright, have the clutch cover off here. I thought I did a better job cleaning that off when I originally did this, but guess not. But here's the clutch cable. So it's pretty easy setup, just a little spring in there that returns it back, and then you have your clutch cable that connects on. And so we're going to go ahead and pop that out, and maybe we'll look at this little system a little bit to see how it works. So looking at this clutch assembly, what it does is when you pull the clutch down, and it's a little loose now because it's all disconnected, but it just rotates this little dial there that kind of pushes out, and it pushes this pin over here. Well, if you can see it back here, pushes this pin in, and that's what engages your clutch and disengages it. So the pin just rides in this little hole here, and like I said, just when you squeeze the clutch, it rotates that up, and it just moves that disc out, and that pushes that clutch pin in just enough to engage and disengage the clutch. It's very simple setup from what I see here, and seemed to work fine when I had the bike out, and like I said, the little bit of riding I did on it. So yeah, that's basically how that part works. So we're going to go on from there and continue breaking this down. We get the chain off and out of the way, and keep working on getting this motor ready to come out. Alright, the next thing I did was I just had to bend this little tab up on this washer back here that holds this nut on. When I bought this motorcycle, somebody had taken this off and never put it back on. So this washer, I think it's I think I used 130, let me see, 1 1/4 inch socket to break this loose. And let me take it off of here, because I think it's, if I remember correctly, this is a special washer that sits under there that I had to hunt down and purchase to go in here. Yeah, see how it's got like a little star pattern that fits in there, and that's what locks this sprocket on. So somebody had taken that off at one time and never put it back on. So I had to get this special washer to go on there, and you just kind of bend the corner of it down to lock around the nut so it doesn't back itself off as you're riding. So let's see, I can't remember. Yeah, I think we can just take this off right here, get this sprocket out of the way. I'll have to do it with 2 hands, and get the chain off. Alright, so you got the cover off here for the starter. We're going to disconnect the cable off the starter here. follow these wires back, find the connector for them. I know it's up here where I kind of had the wires all hidden in the little tray that I made, which is, to be honest with you, a little bit of a mess, but it works. And we're going to see about getting that off so we can have everything disconnected from the motor on this end, and then we'll kind of check out what we have next. So here we go. Alright, what I disconnected next was I took off right here is the gear shift indicator. This bike, it originally had a little dash that had a gear shift indicator, so it would tell you what gear you were in. Here's the little gear shift cable that goes to that. But it's kind of neat how it works. It has a little dial in there, and as you shift gears, that dial, I believe, if I understand it correctly, turns and hits the next pin or sensor on the gear shift indicator, so it would tell you what gear you were in. I don't have that hooked up and didn't really want it. The gauges I'm using right now are the factory gauges that came with it. I just removed it off from the little dashboard piece that it has, but I'm probably going to replace those gauges with some smaller gauges that I like and like the look of a little bit better. But for now I just was running those. But kind of a neat little feature that they had in 1980 to tell you what gear you're in, and I'm not sure what all years they had that on this GS550, but I know they had it in 80, which is kind of cool. And then I also removed the ground wire here from the center of the right here on the motorcycle. So just remove the ground. It's actually a red connector, even though it is really the ground. I just didn't have a black one. Alright, so what I did was I got the ignition wires disconnected. This one, somebody had taken the points off and put electronic ignition on it before I bought it, so I didn't have to worry about points on this bike, which is pretty awesome. But just had to disconnect the wires that feed through up here that go to the coils. So I got that all taken off, ready to come off. I got the rectifier disconnected, the 3 wires here. So I think we have everything disconnected that electrical wise. So now we got the spark plugs all loose, or not loose, but the spark plug cables off and out of the way. Got the exhaust off, which that just comes off by the 8 the 8 bolts that hold the exhaust on. So you could drop that off. The left side is really easy. It has a crossover pipe underneath. You just have to disconnect that crossover pipe. And then the exhaust just kind of slides off, comes off the over pipe and pops off on this side. The other side you have to kind of fish it through the kickstand to get it off, but it's not bad. So all that's off. So now I believe all we have left, of course you have the carb out of the way. So all we have left now is to break loose all the motor mount bolts, and then this motor should be ready to come out. I think what I'm going to go ahead and do, because I think this motor has to come out of the right side, I'm going to go ahead and remove this brake pedal and peg over here on this side to get all the room that I can on this right side, because like I said, it comes up and out through the right. So we're going to go ahead and remove this next and just have it out of the way instead of fighting with it later. Okay, so I just removed the 12mm bolt that holds this brake pedal in, and just have to wiggle it out. That spring should come with it, and just work it on off. Alright, so that's off. I think it's 17mm for the foot pedals here, or the foot pegs. So I remove the foot pegs, move the brake. So now we're going to start looking into brake and motor mount bolts loose. Alright, taking the motor mounts out, and kind of doing this as my reference also on this, but this one lower motor mount bolt here came out, and it has this low piece on it that I guess goes in so you can tighten it up. Once you get it in, it hits up against the motor and kind of turns so you can tighten it down. So that's the first lower motor mount bolt here. Then you have these two bolts on the frame that you take out as well to get that whole mount out of your way so you can slide the motor over. So that's the first one out. I did break loose these other upper motor mount bolts here and the longer rod that goes through in the front. I don't know if you can see that. Bring it around here. So that this front one just broke those loose. So I'm going to work my way around to get these motor mount bolts broken loose, and then we'll come back. Okay, I'm getting the rear lower motor mount bolt out now, or at least the nut off of it. It's kind of hidden a little bit down here, and I'll show you what I did on the other side. The nut is on this side, comes off. But on the other side, there's a little bit of room to put through, and I have a old 17mm ratcheting wrench that I had to cut off for another project I was working on. I needed a short 17mm, and so that's what I did, just cut a cheap wrench, and it actually fits on there perfect and locks down so you can get that lower motor mount bolt that's kind of hidden back here, and you can get the nut off of it. And I'm going to see if I can feed the bolt all the way through. I think we've got all the motor mount bolts broken loose, so we'll have to take this lower mounting bracket completely off so the motor can slide over to out the right side, and we'll break the other ones loose, and then also take this top mount out over here, so that's out of the way also, and we have this one over here at the top as well to get those out of the way so the motor can slide over and come out. So I'm going to take those out next. Okay, I took the upper, oops, I don't know if you can see it here, let me move it up a little bit. So I took the upper motor mount bolt out of here, and it has this spacer that goes on the other side of it. So it comes through and then has the washer and the 17mm nut on the other end. Actually, I'm going to take this mount out, slide this on here too. I try to kind of keep everything together how it came off, so be hopefully easier when it all goes back together. So I think right now I've got the motor kind of sitting on the jack stand. The motor's pretty much loose. I just have to take these two bolts out at the bottom to take that motor mount out. It should be 14mm on those as well, and get that lower mount out of the way, and motor should be ready to come out. So we'll see how fun that process is in a few. Okay, so I've got all the motor mounts out, all the bolts that are holding it in. The motor's sitting on the jack right now. So now I'm just going to try to figure out how the best way is to get a hold of it and try to get it out. Alright, what I did was I just put this strap around underneath the motor and grabbed a hold of the strap, grabbed a hold of this top piece up here, and kind of lifted and was able to get it halfway out. So there we go. She's out. Wasn't all that bad, really. Putting the strap around the back of it was able to lift up on the back part, grab a hold of the front, and just kind of lift it right out of there. Hopefully it's that easy to get back in. You can see I taped up the frame a little bit, so hopefully it'd keep it from getting nicked up. We'll see how that goes. But so not bad for a few hours work of pulling this motor out. There's the bike with nothing. So now I got to figure out how to get this thing on a stand or something to make it a little easier to work on.